Here we go on a beautiful sunny Monday afternoon, 28th of April 2025, with nothing but good news edition of a Podful of Saints, a 49th edition of a season. When we look back on Truro City's Truro City winning the National League South title, so it's all good news, isn't it? It's all positive. Good evening, Jake.
Well, that went to plan, didn't it? Hello, everyone.
Good evening, Lee.
Evening, David. Is the good news is that you are in a good mood, or what is the good news?
Always in the good news. Football season's ended. Right, we're looking back on Albans City's relegation from National League South, which didn't appear at the end of a Twitter on a report of a game Saturday. Not they've done a report, but of a Twitter account of the game. So in case you weren't aware, we have been relegated. At the end of our 692nd game in National League South, including the playoffs. Right, let's have a look at it then. How did it go? Well, the team travelled down on Friday and they went down on Saturday. It was no great surprise. Ian Culverhouse went for the same 11 that beat Hemel Hempstead on Monday. Any similarities between that game and what happened at the Truro Sports Hub on Saturday, Jake? Purely coincidental, weren't they? 3 goals inside 10 minutes. We were just blown away. But they took their goals well. But what they had was something we've struggled to have all season, which was speed. And they had it, and we couldn't cope with it. And we've mentioned it in the season. It's one of our failings. And there was no way back, was it? 3 down in 10 minutes. Good night.
It was. I mean, we were here 2 years ago, weren't we? Talking about that playoff campaign and how we got blown away by Oxford City in a very similar fashion. And it seemed quite apt at the end of that. We thought, right, let's kick on. 2 years later, we've been blown away again in our last game of the season. And this time it's sayonara to the National League. Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? I think all the Saints fans that travelled, and there was a decent number of Saints fans that travelled more in hope than expectation. We all thought it was going to be difficult, but I don't think any of us expected us to be blown away. Really, this season, it's not happened much, has it? Salisbury at home to some extent and Aveley away, even though there's no video footage of that game. That happened, and none of us, I think, expected us to be destroyed in the way that Truro did in the first 10 minutes, and hats off to them. They went there, Truro knew what they had to do. They knew they needed to get the job done. In those circumstances, it would have been easy for them to be nervous or anxious or worried, but they just did the job superbly. And we just couldn't cope, could we? We had no speed, we had no dynamism, we had no control of the game for most of it. And unfortunately, Truro just exposed our weaknesses, used the wide areas well, used their pace well, and our makeshift defence just couldn't cope.
Yeah, well, 6 sides went into the final day of the season, possibly in with a chance of winning the title, but it's in Truro's own hands. They had to basically win by the same margin as Torquay, or one less. And once it was 3-0 in 10 minutes, the title was pretty much theirs. But we'll come on to the second half later on, because there was a time when it looked like it might be slipping away from them. But you go back to the goals on Saturday. Credit to Truro, because they did take the game to us, no two ways about it. But the first goal, Brandon Mason just let his man go. The second goal, quick ball in from the left, and the man got in between two defenders and scored it. A third goal, a long kick by goalkeeper Dan Lavercombe. Jack James was too busy fouling his man, because that would have been his ball, which I think Long King, that's what he left it for, because otherwise he could have got across and cleared it, and he left it. And that left Michael Johnson in no man's land. The fourth goal, again, cluster of players go up. 5 of ours, 2 of theirs, they won it and headed it in. And the fifth one, well, it's a big mistake by the referee, a clear foul on David Long King. Didn't need to read the highlights to see that, saw it with your own eyes on the day. And at that time, when it was 4-2, Torquay had got to 4-1 at Hemel Hempstead. And from what I've heard, they should have had 10. They just had so many chances, just couldn't score them. And so Torquay should have won it in the end, the title. But they got that fifth goal, and it had been very quiet at the ground for 5-10 minutes after we got our second goal. Sean Jeffers, his 98th National League South goal for us, and of course the record goal scorer in National League. Full stop. Our final goal at that level. His final for the club. We'll discuss that in a minute. and it had gone quiet. But then they got that goal when it was party time with the fifth goal. You were in amongst the packed bit behind the goal. Jake, what was it like? Obviously, our supporters there, very vocal early on.
We tried our best. But yeah, when it went down like it did, I mean, Saints fans behind the goal, all of us very quickly accepted it, and we're happy to just continue to get behind the boys. And Truro fans didn't like having away fans there. Maybe that's why they didn't segregate it. They seemed quite offended that away fans dare turn up on their big day out. So hello everyone, enjoy the National League. But yeah, it wasn't great. But I will say about Dave, 2 goals for us. Shock horror. 2 good bits of quality in terms of delivery into the box and
Yeah.
2 good goals. Who knew? We've missed it all season. It turned up on the final day. Shame about the other end, but decent balls in, and you have 2 players there who, when they get service, can, good finishes, and that turns out like that. As you say, when it got to 4-2, it's just a shame that we conceded that fifth because there was a little bit of anxiety, and it was never really going to happen, was it, in terms of staying up, but it could have been a very interesting finish, not for that fifth goal.
Yeah, the interest wasn't us staying up. You're right, that had long gone. But Torquay almost had the title then, but it wasn't to be for them. Yeah, we haven't mentioned Harrison Smith. You mentioned that first goal. He did well to get in there. Good ball in from Gio Rasulu. Picked up his 11th booking of the season, the highest of anybody in the club. And then Sean Jeffries' header from Brandon Mason cross. Both goals were incidental. We were out of it, but by the time we got them, our tactics, I found them curious, Jake. Truro were coming at us, so we needed to get the ball out of our half, try and clear our lines, and we did these goal kicks in the first 10 minutes. 3 of them. David Long-King passed short to Michael Johnson because he's an excellent outfield player, of course. He's not a goalkeeper. So what happens? He knocks the ball out wide trying to find someone. It goes out of play. So we haven't even cleared our own half from a goal kick. And what happens? They've got Christian Oxlade-Chamberlain, terrific long throw. Showing most of them aren't legal. His back foot's off the ground practically every time. Linesmen don't bother with that nowadays. So we're putting ourselves back under pressure when we needed to ease it. And you just think back to David Noble and his reluctance to change tactics, shall we say. Stubborn, you could say, and it cost us our place in National League South because of the dire start we had. And you just felt we should have changed it quicker than that and done something different. I don't think it would have made a blind bit of difference as it went on. But just to see us adding to the pressure on ourselves, it wasn't a way to deal with it. Anything else you want to add to that, Jake?
No, I do agree. I thought after the first goal, when that goes in, surely you need leaders out on the pitch saying, right, let's just stop now. Let's just try and keep the ball away from our goal for 5 minutes. Just do anything, lads. But there was just no one that stepped up. I mean, in the first, 30 seconds, ball went back to MJ and it was just blind panic at the back. They pressed really hard very quickly, and it just, that didn't bode well for the following 90 minutes. It was all just a real shame. And we talked about, Lee, you talked about last week, the importance of the game. Could be one of the most important games in our history. And it's just so gutting to see us, fail like that. It's not that game that sent us down. It was the rest of the season. So many other moments. But for that to capitulate in that way, so much built about it. Everywhere I've been, podcasts, radio, everywhere since, all talking about the final game. And it's really great being reminded about it. I'm really enjoying that. But yeah, just the way it happened, really disappointing, and sort of sums up the season, doesn't it? All this hope and expectation, and it just falls over within the first 10 minutes and the first 10 games of the season.
You mentioned no highlights of the Averley game still on the club website, shamefully, of course. And then no highlights from Saturday, I believe, from our side, was there?
No, I don't believe Truro let us, did they?
They wouldn't. No, they said that their gantry wasn't big enough for 2. Well, if they took down those 2 huge speakers, which were either side of their video bloke, you could have got 2 more video people up there. And apparently their guy's scared of heights, which is why he stood in the middle. And also, They were very unhelpful, apparently, with our media. So there's no space for our media. And then their media guy, he's got 4 seats there for his young family. How can that be good etiquette? It's very disappointing. And you've probably got more on this, Jake, than I have. A lot of rumblings from supporters about the tickets and how difficult they were, not giving much information.
Yeah, exactly. Same on Friday when there was a very late release, too late for Saints fans to get them, and then they ended up seem to be being released very early as well. So everyone that Saints fans sort of missed it. So a real shame. I think both clubs have made mistakes on the ticketing side in terms of this game, but Truro before the game, it very much got a sense of, oh, why are you lot turning up? What are you doing? This is just us playing here. What are you going on? So yeah, Saints all around a disappointing day off the pitch as well.
It was. And there's also comments about trust, Jake, not even trying to run a coach to the game for supporters in what was a huge game for the club. Um, Ian Rogers, the trust chairman, put a piece in the programme the other week saying the cost of it basically too prohibitive. Well, we didn't even ask the supporters if we can get enough down there to make it worthwhile, see if they'd be interested. And that didn't go down with supporters.
No. So, well, we know away travel's been an issue to some extent this season with coaches. It's something that the trust is always looking at, and it is a shame we weren't able to get one. But then I think the ticketing situation just made it so difficult to know who was going to travel. Unfortunately, the whole thing. I think if we look back on it together, I think really it could have all been managed much better and much more smoothly for supporters.
Right, you mentioned the atmosphere behind the goal a bit. The Truro supporters weren't keen on having our lot there. I stood in one of those stands on the side of the pitch, which was all Truro supporters, plus a former owner of, was it East Grinstead, I think he used to be, and a manager and whatnot. And they were good, very good humour. That was a good afternoon. They didn't like it when I suggested they're going into playoffs when it was 4-2 and 4-1 over at Vauxhall Road, but there you go. But yes, it's funny. The last 3 games, the crowds, we set a record attendance at Enfield Town, a record attendance for ourselves in a home National League South match, and then a record attendance at Truro's new ground. We are obviously such a major attraction.
We're going to be missed next season, aren't we?
Oh yeah, not in Barwell. We're going to Barwell? Oh no, we went down, didn't they? Right. What about you? Did you follow the game on social media or radio or whatever?
I tried with the radio and it kept it wasn't really working particularly well. But then I'd need to because I had live updates from Jacob and all of the boys that were there. The one thing that, I mean, let's sort of face it, if there's anything good to come out of Saturday is the fact that Torquay fans have just lost their mind completely on social media. I mean, the meltdown that they were having was absolutely biblical stuff. I think at the start of the day, I mean, I was in a bad place anyway. I mean, just sort of trying to fathom whether we had any chance at all. What I would say, fellas, is pretty much mirrored what you've already sort of said, is that the players, you know what, given the magnitude of this game, and it was, quite rightly one of the biggest games in recent years, let's take the emotion out of it, fellas. Let's take the crowd out of it. Let's keep them quiet. Let's not do anything rash, like, go 3-0 down after 10 minutes. Not helped by some absolutely comical defending at best. I mean, look, I think once it was 3-0, I was just more concerned for the fans who'd made the effort to get down there. Because we've all been there when we've been on the wrong end of a hiding so far away from home, and just got to go down so early as well. I mean, the main takeaway I took out of watching the highlights and listening to all of the fellas and the post-mortem on our chat is that, there's a difference between application and ability. The players, you can see them trying, but ultimately we're just not good enough. We are just not good enough. And we're down not because we've been unlucky or, the chips have been against us. We're down because we're just not good enough. And I think now is the time, not for egos, but for empathy and energy really to get this club back where he wants to be.
Yeah. We'll come on to Ian Culverhouse. Listening to his post-match, so I was in on coach on the way back on Saturday. He sounded as though he's expecting to get booted out at any minute. It didn't sound like someone who expects to stay. Unfortunately, the question wasn't put to him to ask whether he'd like to stay and try and get us back up. So we don't know what he's actually thinking, but that sounded like a man who's not expecting to be here much longer. But we look at our record under him. Under Nobby, we've got 12 points from 16 games. Under Ian Culverhouse, we got 33 points from 28 games. Now, had he been able to there for a whole season, at that ratio, we'd have ended up with 54 points, which would have been safety. That's not to say it would have happened, but you think we'd have had a better chance than what happened, because what happened beforehand. So he did actually improve things during his time there. But what about you two? Would you like to see him stay? From that interview, I guess you're going to agree he's not expected to stay.
Yeah, I mean, his programme notes for the Hemel game implied that he was ready for the challenge next season. I said this before, didn't we? I just want him to have a fair crack of the whip. Even when he came in, I expected him to keep us up, but I think the hand that he was dealt didn't help him. I mean, look, on the way back, on a coach, you've got 5 hours ahead of you. You've just been absolutely spanked. You've been relegated. Emotion is going to be raw. You know, you're not going to be in a particularly upbeat mood at the best of times anyway. So I'm trying not to read too much into that. You'd like to think that he would get as much grace as David Noble got in the new season, with a pre-season underneath his belt, with his players, you know, doing it the right way with the right personnel. And you would hope the owners would. I mean, I actually had the pleasure of chatting to the owners for quite some time on Friday. They were quite sort of optimistic about the future, but then again, I guess you would say that. I mean, it's lip service, isn't it, at the end of the day? But again, I don't see any benefit in changing the personnel again. You've got, I mean, results have improved to a degree, but I think you've got to give them enough rope to hang themselves in terms of the new management. You know, because that's what you gave to Nobby. So surely, with the caliber of some of the likes of a club legend like Bazza and an established manager like Ian Culverhouse, who's got promotions with multiple clubs, you need to give them time, because at the end of the day, they came into it and it was, I mean, the first game was a very credible draw away to Maidstone. And we all thought, didn't we, fellas, that this could be the benefit of, you know, this could be the start of something really, really good. You've got to give them time. You've got to give them the right arsenal to get us up, because there was mentions, Jake, wasn't there, of like younger managers sort of coming in, hungry managers, and that's fine. But you've got a hungry manager and an even hungrier assistant here, and you've got Joe Simpson as well, who I think is absolutely exceptional. I think he speaks fantastically well, and you know, he's a football bloke as well, and he knows his onions. So give them the benefit of the doubt and let them finish the job. Let them get us back up to where we belong.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, Dave's silent. He agrees so much. I do agree 100%. I think my concern this summer is it's going to be a summer of change. I think there's going to be a lot going on both behind the scenes and in terms of the squad. And I think at this moment you need, I mean, Ian Culverhouse talked about reset, but I think you need managers that can see you through that reset. And I think this management team are that. Maybe there's obviously big discussions to have, but I think to undergo that change as well would be a huge ask given the situation and everything that's going on and off the pitch. There's a lot of work to do. I thought Culverhouse spoke really well in that interview. It felt raw, but it felt real. And it's probably the most open communication we've had from the club in quite some time, isn't it? Or from a representative of the club, talking about the honesty of the situation and where we are and what is needed. And it's been nice to hear that from Culverhouse, and Bazza and Joe Simpson on their respective social media feeds. And it's been good to know that that's how they feel. So it would just be nice to see, I think, that reflected upstairs from the leadership, from the ownership and the board. I think the best thing that could happen now would be for the ownership and the board to come out with a similar statement to let fans know what's going on. But it'd be lovely for me, I think, to see Culverhouse.
Statements. Bloody hell, boy.
It'd be great for me to see Culverhouse and Bazza and Joe Simpson stick around.
Communication from the club has been absolutely dire this season, as you two have said several times. And one thing we've had is this statement here. Work has already begun behind the scenes on plotting our route back to National League South. We owe it to you to all come back stronger, and we will.
Yeah, it's all well and good praising the fans and, you know, their intent, but talk is cheap, right?
Yeah.
You know, the fact is, there's at the minute,
God knows where it came from, but it's condescending, Patrick.
Well, no, yeah, but the thing is, I think there's still a lot of people licking their wounds, and it's a time of reflection. People are just sort of trying to process this as well. But I think the club now need to make a stand. If you cast your mind back, the owners have gone on record multiple times saying, look, we want to go down like the Dulwich model. So, well, they've done that, okay, because we've got craft beer and now we're relegated as well. So careful what you wish for half the sort of time. Mm-hmm. But they've got to face up to the music. Tony Gautier and the others need to look at the true values of this club. Okay, they need to focus on the fact that you've got to get it right on the pitch. And then after that, everything else will follow. You know, we need football people in charge of the football club. And I think with Ian and Bazza, you've certainly got two of the very, very best at non-league level. So I think the people in charge making the decisions, whether that be the owners or Tony or Harry Wheeler, they need to look at themselves and think, right, what is the best way of getting the players we want who are passionate enough to get this great football club back up to where it belongs? And they need to do that process sooner rather than later. We're led to believe that there's a meeting this week and so on. So let's see how things pan out from there. But I'll tell you what, fellas, you know, they can pander to it and they can thank the fans because they've not done that all season. They've been promoting something else other than, you know, what the fans' needs are. So let's look into that. But look, ultimately, we're relegated. And that is not a result of the fans. That is a result of what happened on the pitch. That needs addressing.
Right, I've got a message from Jake saying my connection might be dodgy tonight. So if you can hear me, you're really unlucky. It's not that bad. What's going on behind the scenes, plotting our route back to National League South? Is this going to be the same people who made a dreadful decision last season when they went against fans' wishes to bring David Noble back as manager? We're now paying the price of that. Is this the same people who oversaw the influx of players who could only play one way last summer, who had great stats at passing as long as the ball went backwards, but none of them had combined total of 2 goals between them from the previous season with two main midfielders? Creatively, got nothing from them. So if we've got the same people in the scouting and the backroom staff, there's one person you haven't mentioned there in the background who has a lot of influence. If those are all still there, can we expect the same disasters to happen again this summer? Because it's impossible to have faith in those people making the right decisions this time. They got it so bad last time, and they clung on to David Noble way after they should have done. He should have gone after the FA Cup defeat at Great Yarmouth to Galston. And those extra few weeks probably cost us our place in National League South. All right. They're not going to go. They're not going to leave the club, that's for sure. The club talks about a reset. I think one of you two said it there. It's just easy words, isn't it? What is a reset? Is it clearing out people who made all the wrong decisions last year? What is it?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think that gives credence to keeping this management team. They are strong personalities. I think if you got rid of them now and brought in another young, inexperienced manager, or a manager who hasn't had a lot of time, or a manager who just, you know, maybe isn't quite up to it, I think, again, you've got to have strong personalities in that role this summer to help guide the club and lead it to a place that it needs to go, especially if those individuals are still going to remain in post behind the scenes. Fine, that's absolutely fine. The ownership believe in them, fair enough, but then don't be going and changing, for me, the management team at a time when you need, I think, that it's almost like a gel. I think Culverhouse and Bazza could help guide this club to the place it's going to be. They've done it with other clubs. And if they want to stay, and I suppose that's a thing to consider as well, isn't it? Do they want to stay? Hopefully they do. Do they want to wait and see what league we're in? That's another thing we haven't even considered. But all these question marks. But if they stay, I think that is why they should, because they would be that gel and help bring this club together again at a time when, the leadership and the ownership and those behind the scenes are certainly getting quite a lot of stick on social media and all the other platforms at a level that they never really have before. So keeping Culverhouse and Bazza, I think, would really help to that extent.
Somebody made a point, sent it to me, about the club never accepted its position. A former manager told me 10 games in when we were in trouble. Because don't forget, out of these 46 league games, there's only one game after which we were outside the bottom four. So we fully deserve to go down. We've been in the bottom four practically all season. But he's saying after 10 games, the club didn't accept where it was. He said, we're going to get out of it. We've got plenty of time to get it. And he just carried on like that. It's just compounded mistake after mistake. And his supporter said he goes on social media sites that are frequented by Dartford and Havant supporters. And they said back in November, December, if you're in a relegation battle then, the chances of you getting out of it are pretty slim. The chances are you are going to go down. And the ones that get out of it, the clubs that spend big money in desperation. Of course, we didn't do that. We went for the young loan players from Football League clubs. Some have worked out quite well, some less so. And to get out of trouble that way, it would have bucked the trend had we done so, and we didn't do so. And again, it comes back to the same people who are plotting our route back to National League South. Do you want to have a look at which players we're likely to keep or think we should keep?
Yes.
One suggestion. Sorry, one suggestion of Sean Jeffers. He's had a lot of criticism because he doesn't look the same as before. But that's because we haven't tried to get the best out of him, which is creating chances. You look at the top goals for Zane Banton and Ken Charles. Ken Charles is top scorer. But the first time in, 17, 18 years, our top goal scorer hasn't got into double figures in the league. It's just because they had so little to feed off. It got forwards for not getting enough.
Is he still there?
Yeah, I think he is somewhere.
I mean, either that, he's looking quite pensive.
Yeah,
Maybe it's wind. I don't know.
They had overall. What's substandard?
Oh, he's back. He's back. Go on, Lee.
I think you're asking the wrong question, Dave. I think the question you should be asking is which players can we actually keep? Because the better ones, I mean, look, there's absolutely not a helping hope's chance that we keep David Long-King and Zane Banton. They're not going to want to be playing at the level that we're going to be entertaining next season. Then there are those that probably are going to move on, not good enough, really. Jeffers, the argument about Jeffers, I get a bit more. He could have like a friendo moment when you're actually really good at that level. Maybe he'll be that big fish in a small pond again. I don't know, but again, I think when you have a reboot, it should start all the way through the team. Given how emotional MJ was, both on social media and at the games recently, I think he'd want to stay. Whether that decision is taken out of his hands, I don't know. But I think you talk about the reboot tabs, but there's got to be an acceptance that they need to look at themselves. This goes from the top down. They've lost sight on what this football club actually is and what it needs to succeed. Players, I can't see too many of them staying, if I'm honest. They'll always get a better offer elsewhere from National League South clubs, and some of them maybe even higher. But who knows? But ultimately, we want players that want to play for the club. And at the minute, we are a wounded animal, and we need, as Jake said, we need to get the structure in place to attract the players. And with that comes a proactive, dedicated management team. So the sooner we can get that locked in, the sooner we can start focusing on the players. Because you can, look, Zane, let's just take Zane. Zane has been one of the players of the season. He's been a consistent throughout, even when he's come back from injury, right? We would, of course, love to have him, but there's people tapping them up. There will be people tapping them up. Does he really want to commit to the Isthmian League or Southern Central, wherever he's going to do? I mean, he owes us nothing. He could have gone 4 or 5 times over the last 4 or 5 years, but he chose to stay with us. I just think a relegation maybe is just one twist in the tail too far.
No. Go on, Dave.
Oh, blimey, that's knocked in for 6.
Yeah.
So it's just me and Ian and Jake.
Probably for the best. Finally, everyone's prayers have been answered. He's back. He's back.
Just when you thought it was safe.
Oh God! Right? No, I do agree. I would love Zane to stay, and I think he might. I think he might, but he's a great player at this level. As you say, same with Dave Log King. I fear he may be off. We think he's on a 2-year contract. I'm sure there's a break clause in there of some sort, given the relegation. But aside from those two, who else? James Sweet, potentially. I mean, did he signed in the earlier season, doesn't he? So does he have a contract to the end of the season? Who else? There's a lot of players, I think, that will get offers from the National League South level. If not, they will get good offers from the division below. And I think that's the thing to remember as well. We're not going to be down. We're not going to go down and immediately be favourites for the biggest budget, are we? We know there's a lot of big spenders in that division, and they will also be looking at some of our players, your Rasulos, I can't remember any of our other players, Masons, everyone else in the squad. There will be suitors for them. So it would just be interesting to see how much lure there is. And if this management team stay, I think there's going to be a massive reset anyway. If they go, there's going to be a massive reset. I think, I wouldn't be shocked if there's maybe 1 or 2 faces remaining from the squad this season as we build for this season in the whichever division we're going to be in.
I think James Sweet's contract is up at the end of June, and Harrison Smith's got one to the end of June next year.
Yeah, Smith is one we've forgotten about because of his injuries, isn't it? If he can stay fit, he will be, I think, a brilliant player in the division below.
I think you're dead right. Throughout his time with Stevenage, he's always struggling with injuries, and unfortunately, it's continued at Clarence Park, hasn't it?
It has, yeah.
As for other players, we lose a whole load of 1, 2, 3, 4 loan players, 5 loan players straight away, and the other players out of contract. Whoever comes in, or if Ian carries on, they've got a huge rebuilding job.
Yeah.
And if we go Southern League Central, that could actually work in his favour because he's better known, or he's worked longer in National League North. So us going into that league, which I really hope we don't, much nicer towns to visit in Southern League South, that could very much work in his favour and could ultimately then work in the club's favour.
Yeah, and that's why it's so vital that we get the management sorted out ASAP, because literally there'll be clubs now doing their business now, behind the scenes, and that's where we need to be. And Tabs, you mentioned it with such ferocity at the beginning of the season, the lack of squad, the lack of pre-season games, the lack of interaction between the club and the fans to let us know what's sort of going on. It just seemed a bit half-assed. And if there's one reboot that needs to happen, it's the fact that people need to drop their egos behind the scenes at the football club and have a bit of humility and empathy about what's just happened and not make the same mistakes this off-season as they made last. So they need to get their business done nice and early. If they don't want Culverhouse and Bazza, fine, but at least get that in place so then the fans know, so they can prepare themselves. That then gives you the whole off-season and the whole pre-season to do your business and accumulate a squad a squad, not just a team that is going to be challenging. Because that's, I mean, look, we've had some great times. We've had some great away days. We've had some, we have had some things to shout about. But I'm bored off my tits of losing games, and I want to start winning again. And I really want us to have some players who are going to give us the best chance to do that.
But people ask who we think should take over as manager. But I think while Ian is still there, and he is at the time of this being recorded, we can push that to one side. Names are coming out of the woodwork. We shall see. And it could, again, depend on which league we're in. It could be one of three. Make a decision as last summer. Could be more selections next year. Right. That's enough for now. I just want to say a bit about Truro. Congratulations to them. It's a fantastic achievement what they have done. Their supporters saying we've got the third lowest budget in the league. No, they hadn't. That's absolute codswallop. The players they've got there, the manager they've got there. No way is that coming on the cheap.
Oh, speaking of cheap, put a quid in the meter taps.
They've had to buy their success a bit. But even so, on there, and suddenly it's just shot up to this, pretty much like ours. And it's credit to them. They're probably not as popular as they like to think they'd be, judging by comments from Torquay people and from our lot as well. I don't feel they were treated.
Oh boy!
Oh dear!
This is like my season, mate. Just falls away at the end.
Yeah,
That's great. But it's still a fantastic achievement what they've done.
Oh, Dave, he's back again. Isn't it quite? It's quite coincidence that
I've been wasting my time today.
It breaks up every time Dave sort of gets midway through his point. It's almost as if the internet finally agrees that.
Computer says no.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, we better record it again then, shall we? We'll do it tomorrow.
Hey.
Can I? I've got something I want to raise actually, and I think you two discussed it a bit earlier on about so a relegation. It always unsettles and upsets the dynamic of a club, and that's probably when it needs its supporters a little bit more. I think we touched upon, or you two touched upon, the Saints City Trust, and I say this with the utmost respect for my friend here, Jake, who's part of the trust. But I think this now and then, I think needs to be reflective, and I think the trust needs to be proactive now about going forward. It needs to be a fair representation of the fan base. Yes, there's time for raffles and golden goals, and that might be the staple of the match day experience, but they, like the club, need to be bigger, bolder, better in all of their engagement. When's the last time we had, a fans forum? When's the last time we had a quiz night? When's the last time we had a summer family event? If you want, and I'm hoping, and these are the conversations that I will have with the committee of the trust. But where's there have like a big summer barbecue on the pitch to really engage the fans and give them a bit of sort of sense of being now in the decision making going forward? I don't want to see, and it's also a genuine question about where the money from the trust goes, because I don't personally. I mean, this is ironically, it's the 1 year out of the last 10 or 15 that I've not joined the trust, not because I didn't want to join the trust, just because I just never got around to it. I was so engulfed in the rip roaring football that we were playing at Clarence Park over the last 8 months. But I'm not entirely sure when I pay my subs for the trust, I don't want them to be giving it to the club to buy a new lawnmower or a washing machine. That should be going back towards the fans. And I know that you two mentioned it a bit earlier on. The subsidised coach travel, or if it's not always possible, put some information in about car sharing or getting the fans to the away games. It's a massive, massive thing of mine. Get those fans from the home games to the away games, because that's how you make that connection, right? And it's not always possible, but I just don't believe the minute the trust is a fair measure of what the fans require at this stage. It's just a case of, I mean, look what happened when the owners asked us to establish Stand By Your Saints. You know, the trust got left behind because the initiatives the Stand By Your Saints implemented, they were engaging. You know, they were thought provoking. It immersed everyone, and they were inclusive. And okay, some of them benefited the community as well as the club. But some might say, well, hang on a minute, the trust is still here, and Stand By Your Saints isn't. So what does that tell you? So, well, of course, longevity is key, but trust is also key. And there were committee members of the trust who turned around to Stand By Your Saints and said, we wish we had the ideas that you had. Just think about the way now, because everyone's going on about how good the fans are, but you need to utilise that. You know, Tabs, you mentioned it was a shame that we couldn't get a coach down there to Truro on Saturday. But I mean, look, we could have got a coach down there, I'm sure, but would we have filled it and it would have been worthwhile? But again, those are discussions that need to be had. I don't want to see Ian and Duncan plonked in a little hut, hidden away behind. They should be front and centre at every home game. The fans should have a genuine voice. And I'm hoping that Tony and Laura, Tony in particular, should be looking at this now, thinking, right, how can we get a genuine, reflective argument for the fans? You know, I mean, Dave, you keep telling me that he's quite open to conversation and to be approached. This is a conversation to be had now, not in the summer when all the business has been done and the kit's been launched. And you know, we were launching the kits in like the local pubs and stuff. The local, you know, this is interaction, fan engagement now, because we've spoken at various times over this season about, will the fans come back? The fans will come back for the chicken and the craft beer. Well, what about the ones that actually give a shit about the football? Let's get them engaged as well, because ultimately, if you keep losing games and you're not signing anyone decent, then they'll soon go. The thing is, you don't get to dine with the princes on occasion, and then not want to bother to sort of drink with the paupers. Get that clubhouse rocking. We've been up to the clubhouse, Jake, haven't we, a few times after games. It's been absolutely soulless. That place used to be a hive, right? The players need to take some responsibility in that as well. I didn't see any of our players up there after games engaging with the fans. You know, you should have Sean Jeffers and Gio Rasulu signing shirts and programs galore. It happened on occasion, but far too few. You know, we're talking about legacy planning now for this club. We can only the club can only sort of do so much in terms of making sure they get the right engagement in terms of players and personnel. Well, the trust now need to look at themselves and think, right, how can we establish now with a big fan base? We go to these AGMs and these committee meetings, Jake, and the numbers are dwindling, mate. You know, I feel sorry for the likes of Ian and Duncan, who have given, you know, decades of service to the trust. And I think they need help sort of really reinvigorate what they stand for. Taking the fan base as it is at a minute, the trust isn't a fair reflection of it. So not only do the club have to do some rebuilding and some rebooting, but maybe those in charge of looking after the fans need to sort of do that as well.
Well, trust, you mentioned it's falling membership. Jake probably know what it is. I don't think it's particularly great. You look at the number of people who watch a podcast, and it will dwarf the trust membership. And yeah, you mentioned you had chats with people at the club there last week, and so did I, with two people there. And certain people at the top end of the club watch this podcast, and they are fully aware. I made it fully aware to them. They're not just our opinions here; it's supporters' opinions, and they value that, and they want to hear more. So supporters, get in touch with us, because people at the club do hear it, and although certain ears at the club are closed, right at the top, further down, those the workers, if you like, they want to hear what supporters say.
Yeah, and it's great to hear that. And I also would implore anyone that is watching to look at the trust, look at joining. As Lee said, I think there's things that need to be improved and things that need to, in terms of outreach and going out to fans, been attempts to do that this season. It's probably not worked as much as we want, but there's now ways to join online as well. Very easy to do. Have a look at the Saints City Trust website or our social media. And join if you want to. It's a low fee, and you will be contributing. But I also agree that the club needs to be more held to account. I mean, there's not been a fans forum this season. I mean, I think not long ago the club committed to multiple fans forums a season, didn't they? That's gone. And there's other ways that the trust needs to start engaging with fans and the club. And I think more regular communication is something we're looking at and will hopefully happen. I think, especially now at a time when the club is going to be going through massive, massive changes, both on and off the pitch.
You still there, Tufts?
A club has really got to reach out to supporters better. The communication it's had with supporters has been absolutely shocking this season. It's completely the website. It's like a dodo. They've got to improve all of that. Got to communicate with the fans, and the trust have as well. They really have.
That's it. He's out. Oh,
Hello, he's back.
It is a reset. It is a reset. Is it more people coming in who've got a club at their heart who can say, I want to communicate and be in touch with them? Because I'm not in favour of keep bringing in youngsters on the media side outside the club, and it's just a training ground for them to move on to something else. They've not got a club at heart. They're just trying to do a job and then present it to their boss. Say, look, this is what I've done. And that's the one thing that does annoy me. It's only a minor thing. Everything written about the club, games coming up, it's they. St Albans City, they are away. On Saturday, they played. No, it's we. You are writing on behalf of the club. It is we. On Saturday, we played so-and-so. Our support was great. Try and make it look as though you are interested in your club. And that's not the way it comes across with the club's media at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we would encourage, wouldn't we, any Saints fans that want to get involved with the club, volunteering wise, media wise, or whatever. If you want to do it, the club always wants new volunteers, always needs volunteers. Lee, we did it for years, and of course, it didn't end how we wanted to, but when we did volunteer, it was a very rewarding experience, wasn't it? Helping your local club. So if there is anyone that can help or wants to help and have that experience, I think the club would be very happy to have you on board. And we've seen, haven't we, the club's appeals for volunteers. So it would be great for people to go and do it if they want to and they've got the experience.
It was quite easily the best seven years that I've had in football, and I've worked for some amazing clubs, and I've worked on big games. But I think when you are involved at that level with your home city club, yeah, Tabs, I think I know what you're saying, but to create an avenue where someone who does come in doesn't necessarily immediately give a monkeys, that might turn, that because you learn to love a club, didn't you, over the course of time. I think it's unfortunate how it's all happened in terms of our social media. But again, this isn't a criticism. It's just an acceptance that it's a sounding board, right? Because everyone's hurting at the minute. Everyone's angry. Everyone's feeling quite emotional about what's happened over the last week. We're just trying to make it better. We're trying to give everyone a platform to sort of improve themselves, and I think Jake and I, we had a really good relationship in terms of the media team there. But you're not always going to have that, and we were very unfortunate the way things ended because we disagreed with some of the things that the club were doing. So look, that happens. That's fine. That was their decision. But look, let's try and make it now that we look forward together as one. Owners, management team, behind the scenes staff, God forbid, podcast, David. I'm looking at you right now, me old friend. And see what happens. Because if we all go together forward as a collective, we can do some good stuff.
Lovely. A club. Yeah. What about attendances? Are they going to hold up next season at a lower level? The head of football thinks they're going to go down by a third. Which is obviously nobody knows. It's an unknown quantity. But Dulwich's gates have held up reasonably well, very well, really. People keep comparing us to them. Big support come out of nowhere and relegated. So you can see the connection. Will our crowds hold up? It's interesting because the club recently posted at Company's House its results for the 2023-24 season, which showed us having lost over £220,000.
That's it. He went with the money. He went with early. He's gone.
That's not going into a team. That is off the pitch staff. We had a big off the pitch, but the number of paid staff off the pitch has gone down. So you would imagine full-time staff, easily. So you'd imagine
this is going well, Jake.
Is maybe a bit less, and because the takings have gone up again this year. Big income off the pitch from the various food and what's it outlets. Obviously, the club doesn't get all of that, but it gets the fair slice. So there's money coming in. Have we lost money again this season? I think it'd be a third year in a row if we have. But you'd be surprised if we have, with the people coming through the turnstile down the park.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the attendance has been really interesting. I had a really good conversation with some Saints fans in the pubs of Truro after the game on Saturday, for those of us that, were lucky enough to stay down there and enjoy their Cornish hospitality. And a lot of Saints fans, it was a big discussion point about attendances and ticketing pricing and how we set up for next season, and the connection between the hardcore and those newer fans. And those Saints fans that I spoke to, quite a lot of them don't think our attendances will actually drop a lot because of the more casual support just wanting somewhere to go on a Saturday. But I think it would be a massive risk for the club if they can continue into next season with ticket prices exactly the same, and in the hope and the expectation that, we may have gone down, but it'll probably be fine. I think next season, there's got to be more incentives, whether that's reduced pricing. There's less home games as well. So that's another thing to consider into season tickets. But I think there needs to be more incentives for supporters to come along. And that's not just getting our support back to where it was this season, but growing it further. If we can grow our support even more in the division below, like Lee said earlier, hopefully, let's touch wood. We don't want to jinx it already, but with a good team that's winning games and playing decent football, build that, get supporters engaged, give them a reason to come along financially, then I think the crowds will hopefully stay at a similar level, if not increase, if we're doing well on the pitch. But I think the club, again, needs to look at that this summer and I think be honest with itself in terms of support levels. Let's not just think, oh, we want this, let's hope it's going to happen. Let's be realistic. Let's look at other prices of other clubs in the division as well. Let's see what their crowds are like. How have they done it? We know Dulwich is great, but Dulwich have also put out a really interesting statement from their chairman in the last 48 hours, who was very honest and open about their situation and what they're having to do as a club to reassess where they are, the mistakes they've made, and the connection that they need to rebuild between the successful football side that they've not had for 2-3 years now and the incredible supporter base that they have. And I think we need something similar this summer to make sure it's all, like Lee said, in one together, make sure there's a cohesive approach to the club on and off the pitch that everyone can buy into.
I think you're dead right, Jake. The admission will have to go down next season because we've got to acknowledge we are at a lower level again. It was 3 years last time. The club's looking to make it just 1 year this time, I believe. Which then brings you on to the budget. If they say, well, we've taken admission down, so we're going to take the budget down, well, that would be a big mistake, I think. If they're determined to bounce back straight away, we're not one of the highest budgets in National League South. All the clubs that went up were either full-time or hybrid, or not got up, or in the playoffs, I should say. So it wasn't a level playing field, really, amongst a lot of us, the clubs in National League South. But next year, of getting straight back up.
Oh, he has gone.
He'll be back.
Unfortunately, as it's proven, money comes silly. I'm talking to myself, if not.
Well, I'm going to answer this question for you, Dave, because the thing is.
So,
hang on.
No, I'm going to spend the cash. No, not go big.
No, but this is the point we're making about how serious the owners are and the club are about focusing on the pitch situations. Look, the owners they're still dabbling around with the new ground. That's not going away. In fact, that's been rekindled as well over the last month or so. So they'll be focusing on that. But you need to focus on what's on the green, because ultimately that's going to give you a fair indication of just how progressive you are, and it's going to show us fans just how forward-thinking and passionate you are about doing the things properly on the pitch. I don't think, I mean, they will fall away because of the quality of the opposition fans. We're not going to get as many opposition fans in big numbers as what we have seen this season. So they'll drop away to that extent. Win games and win games of football. And you probably won't see as big a retraction of the fan gates as what you maybe think. But then by winning games, you got to get good players. And if what you're suggesting, Tavs, is that they're going to consolidate the budget in accordance to the income, well, that shows you everything you need to know. Look, I'm not suggesting. Look, we've seen this happen before, where clubs have gone down, they've put the bank on just trying to get up again, and they've thrown money at it. It hasn't always worked, and they've almost fallen foul of it in terms of their existence as a club. I'm not suggesting we do that at all, but who wants to watch, tier 7 football in front of, it's just say you get 1,000 people, but you're getting pumped every single week again because you've not invested where you should have invested the money in the first place. I cannot stress you how simple we got. I got emails this week from a load of chairmen from the league above and this level, and just basically consolidate you. Say, look, condolences for what's happened. You're a good club. You've got some good players, but you've got a good manager. But again, they reiterate Dulwich isn't the model to be following in any way, shape, or form. They are in a massive mess. It's a horrible place to go and watch football. We've got the benefit of having a really, really nice experience to watch football. We've got a good ground. We've got atmospheric, historic old ground to watch football. Let's give us a thriving, fast-paced, high-energy football team to watch whilst we're at it. The crowds will take care of itself after that.
I didn't suggest they would drop the budget if the income goes down. Income will go down because of the price reduction. From what I've heard, I think they'd like to keep it at least where it is, which suggests they are serious about coming back at the first attempt. And I think any cut to that would actually be a mistake long term. But that's just how we'll see. And they got a new commercial manager coming into the club soon, apparently. So they'll be looking to get more fresh income that he can bring in. Oh, Amazon's just arrived at the door. Leave it outside, mate.
There's a dongle, mate. I tell you, if you're Wi-Fi.
It's not Amazon don't want to sponsor the football club, do they? Maybe that's the offer they're putting in, or maybe the podcast. Here we go. Finally, the big bucks are rolling in. But I think it would be a real statement of intent. I think it's again links to nice and circular to our conversation at the start. Make your management decision early on. Make it clear who you're bringing in, regardless of the division. And then that gives you plenty of time and plenty of opportunity to sign good players, big players, players that are known, maybe not known, but at least talented players. We saw actually in the summer, didn't we, that sometimes the bigger names don't necessarily work. But bring in players that are a clear statement of intent. What's it all about? A clear statement of intent that our budget is going to be reasonable, or a budget of a team that wants to compete next season. Do it nice and early. And again, that will also help build the positivity for fans and get everything sort of going towards that early August start. I mean, we've got to play in the blimmin' FA Cup in August, so we've got to get this all really, really early on now. So, but yeah, I think I agree with both of you. Get the budget sorted nice and early, make it clear we're going to be going for it. And then I think a lot of the hard work over the summer would be a lot easier because you get fans on board, don't you?
Well, hopefully, whoever it is who's the analyst with the stats of players at the club, his connection is as bad as mine, so they can chuck him out and get somebody scouting, getting players in who uses his eyes to look at players so he knows what a footballer looks like and what he can actually do rather than what a sheet of stats, a stat of sheets tells him. There you go.
Oh, that note,
that was brilliant.
Oh. He's been building up to that, hasn't he? He's been sort of practicing that in front of the mirror.
Yes. Dave, have you got anything else you want to mention before we try and end this?
Did it even start?
Yeah. Well, we may do another one next week. People are asking if we're going to keep this going in the summer. It won't go all the way through the summer, but if there is news coming of changes this week, then yes, we'll almost certainly do one either next weekend or early next week, I guess.
Yeah,
And you've
I
got
mean,
Sad people.
I mean, it's fair to say, Lee, you've heard as well, big talk about things off the pitch as well, isn't there? So I think this summer's going to be a lot of change and a lot going on. So I think, unlike previous summers, where basically half the summer we didn't know what was going on, and then suddenly it was like all the news at once. Oh goodness me, the season started. I think there's going to be a lot of news throughout the summer, both on and off the pitch, as to what we're going on. So we'll be around. We'll fit it in between Lee's many holidays. But you know, you didn't enjoy that one.
I didn't. But the thing is, though, let's reiterate again: this is a fans' podcast, so we need your input. As Tav said, you know, we need to get your views across. Feel free to email us, direct message us on social media. Jacob is going to give you all the information you need.
Yeah, Podful of Saints on Twitter. Thank you all for the brilliant engagement over the weekend.
Yep.
We've tried to do our bit again before the game and then after the game, relaying messages about the supporters this season and how brilliant we recognise your support has been amazing this season. I thank you all for engaging with us, and it's not ended, I think, how any of us wanted it to or how we expected it. I mean, look at us. I mean, Dave, you to be fair, Dave. I mean, back in August, you were telling us that the midfield didn't look good and the squad had problems. And like a broken clock, you've been right for the first time in how old are you? 75 years. So congratulations.
It went wrong after the friendlies, and it never got any better, and the club was slow to react. There you go.
There you go. Bring Dave in as the analyst.
Speaking about slow, we're going to go now before Dave's Wi-Fi kicks in completely. Yeah.
So thank you all for watching. Thank you for all the engagement. We really appreciate it. Like Dave and Lee said, get in contact. Let us know your thoughts and feelings. And I suspect we will be back very, very soon. Thank you all for watching, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye, everyone.